Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
I'm Julie Hyde-New.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of the show will know that we are part of the Creatives Group, a private networking group for creative professionals across the globe. Together, we help you create, connect, and grow your creative business. So if that sounds like you and you'd like to join our ever-growing network of creative professionals, do come and talk to us after the show. But as I say, this is Creatives, On the Couch with Creatives. So Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
On the couch today is Rob Saunders, who runs DEUCE Music. And DEUCE Music is a leading management and promotion company in the music industry, offering services to independent bands and artists worldwide. Rob is based in London, but he basically offers new and independent artists ways and means to get their music heard by a wider audience. So let's get Rob on the couch so we can find out more about what exactly he does. Hello, Rob.
Hello, everyone.
Nice for you to join us. Thank you very much. Before we get into what you do to help music acts, let's find out a bit more about you as a person. Tell us how you started off in the music industry.
Long time ago now, it feels, but it was something that I always wanted to do from a very young age. I'm from Coventry originally, and certainly growing up in the 80s in Coventry, there was no opportunities pretty much to get involved in the music business. In fact, I think when I went to my careers officer when I was about 15 and I said, I want to get a job in a music studio, he just looked at me very vaguely and then gave me an application form for Peugeot Talbot, one of the car factories in Coventry at the time. So it wasn't really until I moved to London towards the end of the 90s, and I got involved with my brother-in-law's band, and just said stupidly, I'll manage you. And then after that, it just went from there. Just started arranging gigs for them, getting them radio play. Eventually they split up, and it was a case of whether I should just pack it in with them or continue, and I decided to continue, so went on from there.
So now then you started picking up acts all over the place as clients?
Yeah, I thought after the band split up, I just advertised what I was doing, as in looking. First of all, I think I just started looking for acts just to put on social media, on a social media page. Then gradually, I started picking up radio contacts, and more radio contacts on the way, various other music industry contacts, and so then I decided to set up the business where I then be able to get their music out onto radio. And that's what then gave me the idea to set up my own radio show, which is another story. It was my way then of just being able to guarantee that when I promote bands, they will get radio play. But in addition to that, they're going to get their music sent out to lots of other radio presenters, and hopefully they'll like the music and play it too. So it's gone from there. I've got about 60, 70 radio stations currently playing my radio show, and hundreds of radio presenters that have got an interest in new music, which helps increase the chances of them getting played.
Fantastic, because it's very difficult breaking into the scene and getting promoted. So it's great that there are people like you out there who are really helping them do that. But I want to just go back a little bit, because I find it fascinating. Like most young kids, when they want to get into music, they want to play the instruments and be a drummer or a guitarist or a lead singer. Whereas you were more interested in doing the behind the scenes, getting those people the gigs. Talk us through about why did you not feel that you wanted to go out and strut your stuff in the middle of the stage?
I think there's some people that are naturally gifted when it comes to playing musical instruments, and there's others that aren't. And I fit into the latter. Yeah, I always thought about it. It's growing up as a kid, it's what everyone wants to do. But I think the reality was I wasn't very good with playing musical instruments. some people might say I've got a half decent voice. Some people may say I haven't. So it was just the easiest option at the time. A band was already formed when I moved to London, and I just said that I'll manage you without any experience at all in that line of work.
Wow. And was it difficult to get people to listen to you, saying, I've got these guys here, they sound really good, you really want to have them in your gig? How hard is that when you're starting from a position of no one knowing who they are?
It's probably the same with most industries starting out, but certainly with the music industry, it's a rat race. Everyone wants to get heard. Everyone wants to. Everyone's saying that they're with this great band that's going to sell millions. So after a bit, you hear all the same lines all the time. But I think it was really a case of the music doing the talking in this particular case. It was good music at the time, and lots of radio stations picked up on it. It was the beginning of the internet age, just as internet radio stations were picking up, and you had you could find contacts left, right, and centre at the time, and it seemed to be a different period. And I still think to this day, if that band did continue, they certainly would have had some success, but musical differences got in the way. Amongst
is that a euphemism for we were at each other's throats?
There was a lot of that. Fortunately, we're actually still all friends somehow. But after all that, but we're all still good friends. And well, my brother-in-law was one of the guys in the band, and so yeah, we're all still good.
Yes.
And then, how many acts do you represent today?
Well, I promote them rather than contractually represent them, but there's been thousands that I've promoted over the years. So I would say on average it's about 3 or 4 acts a week that I promote. So, and they're all over the world. You know, it's not just the UK, Australia, US, Canada, lots of places in Europe. So yeah, it's really just been a case of getting the word out there and getting as many acts on board as I can. And the idea is as well, you get a very good idea of which, through the promotion that I offer, you get a very good idea of which ones are making a proper go of cracking the music industry and which ones maybe just sitting back waiting for it all to happen for them. So I obviously want to get on board with those that want to make a success of their careers. And so occasionally, it doesn't happen all the time, but occasionally I'll start working with acts on an individual basis and start working with them a lot more closer and trying to find more better opportunities.
What's the difference? Just explain to our audience what's the difference between having representation of a band? I guess that's kind of like falls under the manager maybe, and promotion of the band. How are the two roles different?
Management, you've got a contract with them, so you should, if the details are correct, then you should be getting 20% of future earnings from the artist, approximately. But certainly with what I do with the promotion, there's no contracts involved. If a band went on and got a #1 hit, I wouldn't get anything from that. It'd be just the money that they've paid for the promotion to have got there.
Okay.
So how do you earn your money then?
There's just an upfront fee to pay for the promotion. That's where the money comes through. But I've been trying to operate a little bit different to a lot of PR companies. I tried to keep the fees at the lowest possible rate. The idea being I've got a bit more of a less is more approach. So I know that a lot of artists, they don't have huge amounts of money sometimes to invest in themselves. So if I just keep it at a particular figure, I'm more likely to get lots of bands and artists coming through to me rather than 1 or 2 that can afford a couple of £1,000s.
Yeah, making
so
it easier.
Somebody contacts you and says, right, I'm a one-man band, and you take them on as a client, and then you say you charge them a fee to promote. How long does that promotion go on for?
You know what, it varies, and it goes back to what I'm saying with the fact that there's some acts that are making a proper crack of being a success in the music industry, and ones that are sitting back waiting for everything to happen. And so those ones that I feel are really going for it, I'm quite happy just to continue promoting them, usually just via my own radio show, because there's only so much the other radio presenters may do in the way of playing it. So I'll continue on that line. And then, as I say, if I think there's a good connection between us, a good chemistry, in some cases, I will offer to take things further and just see if we can get even national radio play or national publications interested in it, which has happened in the past.
But what if you have no contract? What happens if you take a music act and then suddenly they go huge? Like you get these YouTube people on, and suddenly they become stars.
Yeah.
Don't they leave you behind and get more expensive promoters, or do
there is that risk, and then you know, it's going to be up to me to actually think, if I do think something's good's going to happen with this band, maybe that's when I'll get some kind of contract sorted out. So yeah, there is that risk, and I suppose that's the same with other promoters out there as well. They could put a band on, and next thing they take off, and you've just played a part in their success. So there's still some positives you can take from it. Even if they made it to #1, you can use them as an example of some of the acts that you've worked with. But yeah, it's a difficult one. They could be huge, but if there's not that chemistry between you, you don't really want to be. It's not good for both parties if you're not particularly getting on with each other. You stick together. So for me, there's got to be a good working relationship together in the first place, as well as the music, before even going as far as contracts.
And I guess when bands do get big, I mean, it's kind of partly out of your control. I would think that when they get to a certain level and people like the big guns come in, they will have their own way of wanting to promote it through their own channels. Like, you know, I used to work for Disney back in the day, and, you know, Disney Music, and, you know, they all have their own set people. And if you're not one of those, then it can be quite difficult getting your foot through the door. So it's kind of almost like you're starting with the fledglings, if you like, getting them to a point, and when they're ready to fly the coop, then you'll have the new ones come in. Because I think it's quite nice that that you said that you have quite reasonable rates, and just to help those new acts get out. Because Julie's, I'm not going to get on my bandwagon, Julie, I promise, about you know, agents and about new talent and stuff. Because being in the film industry and television industry, Julie and I, you know, one of our bugbears is that trying to get new talent out there is really difficult, because they like what they like and they'll regurgitate the same old story, like Lord of the Rings has been done a zillion times. It's like, we don't want that anymore. There's lots of, you know, fantasy fiction authors out there that create something new that could be a really good next big sci-fi fantasy fiction hit, but no one's prepared to take the risk on it. So trying to get new faces out there, I'm a big advocate of people like yourself who get the new faces out there, because you never know where the next big thing's going to come from.
That's the idea, yeah. And people eventually, a lot of these acts that people are listening to on the radio right now, they're going to die out. So we've got to move on to the next generation. So yeah, I love it. You know, you don't know what the next day is going to bring with it all, and it's just interesting just hearing the different music being sent to you. Some of it is really good, some of it is absolutely awful. But it goes with the territory, unfortunately.
Okay, so while we put your contact details across the screen, so wannabe stars can contact you. Could you tell us about your own radio show?
Yeah, as I say, I started it off, it's probably been going about over 15 years now, but the idea behind it all was a lot of PR companies in the music world, they will they'll take the money off the bands and then try to get the music played on radio, and to a certain extent that's similar to me. But what I wanted to do was be able to guarantee to acts that when they sign up with DEUCE, they will definitely get radio play. But in addition to that, they're going to get their music sent out to hundreds of other radio presenters as well. And the chances are a good chunk of them will play the music. But it just concentrates on all of the acts that I'm promoting. It's a 1 hour weekly show. And as I say, so far it's about 60, 70 radio stations that have picked up on it and are playing it weekly as well. I think approximately about 15 of them are FM stations. There's a lot of community radio stations around the world that are very keen in supporting new music. So they're the best ones to go to as a stepping stone, certainly for artists as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to do community radio. I didn't do music, but I'd had a sports show, which was lovely. And there were guys on the show having other music shows that used to get the new artists on, which was lovely. And I used to think it was lovely that they're giving these people a chance for some airtime that they wouldn't normally get. And some of the bands that came through were really good.
Yeah, I think if you scratch the surface a little bit, there's lots of acts out there. I think what most of the general public are hearing is pretty much what just the nationals want you to hear. But if you do just delve a little bit deeper, you will find some really good music, stuff that may even remind you of 90s, 80s, 60s, 70s. There's lots of stuff all out there, but yeah, you've just got to go hunting for it sometimes. And the community radio stations are one of the best for it. I think a lot of them, they may have producers their shows, but even the producers are happy to get the new music on. Whereas if you go directly to the nationals, if you go directly to a national radio presenter, they'll say go to my producer, and then it's whether the producer likes the music for a start before it even gets heard on the show. So it's a lot easier, and it's just a good way of just getting the music heard at a lower level, but then just build it all up.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of community radio stations, they like local as well. They'll do big drives like support local bands. I mean, the radio show that I was involved with, Wickham Sound, they were very big on promoting sort of local bands. So, if you are a musician and you have got a local radio station, go and approach them, because it's a really good way, as you say, as a stepping stone to that next thing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's wanting the Route 1 approach of getting straight onto the nationals, but it's a rat race. And if you was to put on a national radio station right now, the chances are that I'll put money on it. I'll put my mortgage on it that there won't be an unsigned independent band or artist being played right now.
Yeah. And you've got to have contacts to do that anyway, that you can get played if you know somebody who knows a producer. It's a lot easier. It's like with most things in life. But I think if you're, like you said, if you're prepared to put the graft in, you have to understand that it's a journey. You're not just going to wake up one night and be, top of the pop sensation tomorrow. You have to put the graft in, and you have to play the gigs, and you have to get picked up, and you have to have people like you. And with the birth of social media, there's so much noise out there. You need to be making a noise on YouTube and on the so not just your community radio stations, but on internet radio stations, and get as many places as you can. And if you're a small band, like with small businesses, trying to do that all by yourself is really hard, which is why we came up with creatives, to help creatives boost their creative businesses. Because when you're working inside your business, trying to promote yourself left, right and centre, it takes the soul out of you, especially if you're a creative. When you're a singer in a band or musician in a band, you want to play, you want to sing, you want to do your thing. You don't want to have to do all the other stuff. So that people like you that can help show them the route to how to get there, I think is really important.
I think also it helps. I mean, every band is going to be saying, listen to me, we're great. I think it certainly helps if you've actually got someone saying that you're great for them. And so that's another thing for when it comes to representing an act. You're telling the people, listen to these. I really think they're good. And I like to think over the years I've built up a reputation, certainly with a lot of radio contacts over the years, that when they see music being sent to me, they'll at least give it a listen. I can't expect everything to be up to their taste, but I think they'll know that it's up to a good standard for a start.
What do you say to musicians or singers, artists, if they send you what do they send you, tapes?
Not anymore, no.
Show your age there, Julie.
It was CDs when I first started out. I used to have a PO box and collect lots of CDs every week. Now it's just links to their music, usually SoundCloud links or YouTube.
Yeah. So what do you say to artists who don't cut the mustard? I mean, if you listen to them and you go, oh God, these are people just, they're not going to make it. What do you say without hurting their feelings too much?
It depends. Sometimes it could be just the recording, and I'll just say, look, the recordings of this, that you're not going to get radio play with this standard of recordings. You can still recognise that the song and the singing is all up to a good standard. So in those cases, there's a few companies that I'd recommend to them if they did want to take things that little bit further. If it's downright awful, I'll try and just be polite to them and just say it's not the kind of music that I'll promote.
That's a nice one. Not the kind of music. It's not really my thing. But yeah, I mean, you must see all sorts in your business, or hear all sorts, should I say? There
is, and and some of it is really good, but I just know that it's not going to work for my radio show and also for the radio contacts. I could get a lot of instrumentals being sent to me, but I know that that's not really going to work with a lot of daytime radio stations. So yeah, there's different things, and also you can get a really good song, and then there could be some swearing in it or offensive language, and you think that was going well then until that. And you'll be surprised about the amount of bands that don't actually realise sending a song off with swearing in has got no chance of getting played on radio.
No.
It's quite numbers.
Ofcom, yeah,
exactly, yeah.
Very careful. I mean, I was when I have my radio show, I do tend to swear quite a bit, as Julie knows, and yeah. And I had to really concentrate on the radio show because, I mean, as Julie knows, if you swear on air, that is just, it's just no, you don't do it, and the backlash that you get off of it is just horrendous. So I think that's quite a good tip actually for any musicians out there. Do not send recordings in if you want to make it big that is effing and blinding, because it is not going to happen.
Make sure you've got a radio edit if you insist on it all. So yeah, it's not me being prudish or anything, but make sure you've got a radio edit so that it's suitable, because there's been that many good tracks that have been sent to me, but then they drop a bit of swearing in it, and you're just like, that's it, it's game over. It's not going to get used.
So do you spend your days listening to music, going to gigs?
Not well, actually. Since all the lockdowns have been lifted now, I've gradually just getting back out a little bit more with the gigs. So yeah, I try to get out maybe a couple of times a month to see some bands. Some of them could be new established bands. It could be established bands. Others could be just new ones, not even necessarily ones that I'm promoting. But then throughout the day, there's music being sent to me. So yeah, there's a good chunk of the day could be just spent listening to music that's being sent. Even not just that, sometimes I like to stay in touch with what's going on out there, and so I'll just put YouTube on, and I'll put new rock music, new indie music, new pop music, just to give you a bit of an idea of what's going on. And I've discovered quite a lot of new acts that I've went on to see live through just doing that. Living in London.
Wasn't Adele found on YouTube?
I think there's been quite a few, hasn't there? I'm not going to be, I won't name, but there certainly was a phase that we went through. It might have been the beginning of the internet era as well, certainly, where there was lots of acts that were first.
David, he was quite a famous one that started off on YouTube, didn't he? Yeah. Recording in his basement. And
I think Arctic Monkeys, if they just spring to mind, I think they were just discovered online.
And Ed Sheeran as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, I mentioned Arctic Monkeys because I think that was it. It was the MySpace era. I think they got discovered through MySpace, and so they were one of the first to crack the music industry via the internet and social media sites. But yeah,
I think it's wonderful because you don't, so easy in a way, or easier to be discovered now that the internet is just got you in contact with so many people. I certainly would never be talking to a person like you 20 years ago. I would
No.
not have an idea how to knock on your door.
Yeah, and you
So
know,
it's amazing.
yeah, I have meetings with people in America and over Skype and everything and Zoom, and that's something that just never would have happened 20, 30 years ago. So that's all good. I mean, the downside to it all is, I think last time I read there was about 30 or 40,000 tracks, I think, a day added onto Spotify. So that's a lot. That's a lot to get through, and so you know. There is the danger of oversaturation, and that sometimes in some cases too much music to listen to. So so yeah, it's been made a lot easier for your music to be heard by people, but it's actually the trick is to be able to direct people to your music so they can hear it.
Yeah.
And what are the tricks of your trade then? How do you direct listeners to the music that you are promoting?
Well, that's where the radio comes in. You know, if I think there's too many artists that will go into the music studio, they'll spend huge amounts of money on the recordings, and then just put the tracks up on YouTube, SoundCloud, and that's it. They don't really know. A lot of them don't really know what else to do with it. So obviously, if it goes out on radio, it's going out to new listeners that are likely to hear it. I mean, playlisting on Spotify is pretty huge now. So there's a few companies I've hooked up with that get you onto the playlist, and yeah, it's just there's a lot of things that you know, you've got to make your own look, haven't you, in this world? So you've just got to get everything all out there and hope that as many people as possible hear it. So by getting it out onto radio, getting it out onto playlists, and to an extent putting it onto social media and sharing it on your Facebook, Instagram pages, the more people that hear it, the more chance of success you're going to get if the music is good.
Yeah, yeah. Social media is great because it's made it so much easier for you to get your stuff out there. But because there's so much of it, it's actually harder to get heard. You've got to put a lot more into the promotion and the marketing and everything like that any business does these days. Yeah,
that's right. You've got to invest in yourself a little bit, and that's not my plug to say come to DEUCE Music and let me take your money. You've got to. You can't just. I keep on saying this: sit back and wait for things to happen for you. You've got to go out there, do that, and if it involves investing a little bit of money in yourself, then so be it.
Well, that brings us to, because this sounds very much like a top tip. Do you have any top tips for emerging artists?
I've got a few. I mean, some of them may not even involve really being in the music industry. I mean, for me personally, I try not to take advice from people who have got your standard 9-to-5 job, because a lot of them may have thought about going out on their own, but not had the nerve to actually do it themselves. And so I find a lot of people that I try and get advice from in the past that have done that do the 9-to-5 jobs. It can be quite negative, their responses. So I would personally always just try to get advice from people that have gone out there and done it themselves, whatever the business. And I think it speaks for itself. That's you're going to get better advice from people that have been there and done it, rather than people that have just thought about it.
And tip number 2.
Accept that you're going to have rejections as well. That's a big part to everything. You don't get downhearted if you don't get reply backs from the emails. I would say that nine emails out of 10 don't get a response to it for a start. So God knows what it would have been like years ago when you had to just post the CDs in the CDs or tapes in the post, and then hope for responses. But I think the best advice is if you throw enough mud at the wall, some of it will eventually stick. So just keep on getting it all out there as much as possible, and someone will recognise it, and it can then just lead on to lots of other opportunities after that, if that one person hears it and wants to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. And I think doing research, has got to come into it as well, because you know, if you're going to get yourself out there, you need to research the options that are available to you. Like you said, you know, look at social media, look at somebody like yourself who's a promoter. Can you afford that? Look at going to community radio, your local community radio station, and doing a gig. I mean, Wickham Sound used to record live gigs in a studio upstairs, so they'd invite bands in and then they'd record them live, which worked really well. You know, there are a lot of options available to you, not just writing into the BBC or, you know, Heart FM or whatever. You know, look at all the different things, and if you work all your threads, one of them will pay off at some point.
Yeah, it's a case of thinking outside the box. I mean, with the first band that I work with, I just sent their CDs off to anyone that might have some sort of means of getting the music out there to more people. And I started sending them out to football clubs, some big, some tiny, and just saying, will you play this track on the tannoy system after at half time or maybe just before the game. And so, in fact, there was one time I actually heard it being played on the TV. I think it was Newcastle years and years ago that played it before a live football game. So, you know, it's not going to set the world on fire just getting played in a football club. But people, if people hear that song and then they maybe hear it on their local radio station, it's that kind of thing that builds the traction. Yeah. I think there was another story that I heard. It was when Chris Moyles was doing the breakfast show on Radio 1, and someone just waited outside the BBC studios, and as soon as he got out of his cab, they just stuck a bacon sandwich in his hand with the CD and said, "Hey, have a listen, have a bacon sarnie, have a listen to this CD as well." And I think he may have even just played it on air without even hearing the song. So that was a bit of a risk. Again, nothing really happened to that particular artist, as far as I know, but you've got to just do these things, you know, just think a little bit differently to the rest rather than taking the route one approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Think outside the box. I've always been a very big advocate. Say, be prepared to do the things that other people aren't. Yeah. You know, send a demo to somebody. You just don't know what's going to happen. And you know, we talk about community radio, but there's also hospital radio. They're like Sainsbury's and the Co-op. You know, the Co-op. I go around my local Co-op store. They've got their own branded Co-op radio, you know, so that there are a lot of radio stations out there that you might, especially if you're a youngster, that might not even be on your radar. But you know, if you can get it into your local Co-op store, and we all know, like when we're going around, especially at Christmas, like you're fed up with Christmas by December because they're playing the Christmas carols from like, you know, November or
October.
Oh yeah, exactly. But if you can get in your supermarket and they're playing that on a loop. You know, it gets into people's head. Anything that's going to get your music into their head, you know, just go for it.
Exactly, and that's really what I try to do in my radio show as well. There is a lot of radio shows that will just play the song just the once, and then they'll move on to the next act. So I do try to have the acts being played quite a number of times throughout the month, just so that people that listen to the show will familiarise themselves with it, and you know, if they like it, they'll go out and hunt it out, because yeah, you hear a song just the once and you may forget the name of the song or the artist, but if you keep on hearing it, eventually you remember it and then you'll look it up.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with all this noise, I was talking to somebody the other day about general marketing, and it's gone from, I think, you know, 7 touch points before someone will buy from you to something like 37 now. You know, someone's got to see it 37 times before they register. Oh yeah, that's so and so. I'll go and have a look at that. You know, you've got to do things over and over again before you can be seen, because there's so much out there, so much noise. But anyway, we're coming to the part of the show that is my second favourite part of the show, because obviously my favourite part of the show is talking to our wonderful guests. I'm going to get my cards out, my lovely cards, my soft silky cards that I love. I'm just going to have a moment shuffling my cards. Julie knows this.
This is when Melanie has her moment.
I do, and I'm not sorry. So they're real stress busters.
Okay. While she's having her moment with her soft silky card, Rob, just don't worry about this. Just when she asks you a question, just say the first thing that comes into your head. It doesn't. There's no wrong or right here. It doesn't have to mean a thing. Just go off into your imagination, into the world of your imagination.
That's where it could get dangerous. Go on then.
Yeah, this is the on the couch bit of on the couch. So I'm going to run my finger along the cards and you just shout stop when you want me to pick one.
Stop.
All right, what have we got? Ooh, okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. You picked beauty, the value of beauty. And that's quite good as a creative and working with the creative industries, because, you know, sound has got to be beautiful if people want to listen to it. And bands, you know, you want to try and look half decent if we're going to have to look at you on top of the pops or whatever it's going to be. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, what does beauty mean to you, Rob? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
Beauty is only skin deep. It's all about the person inside.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think so. So what you're saying is it looks like, you know, guts. No. I'll say that.
No matter how they look, they could be a really nice person.
What do you think it sounds like? If it had a sound, as you're in the music industry, if it had a sound, what would it sound like?
Oh, that's a tough one. Beauty. That's a hard one. It just sounds beautiful, doesn't it?
To me, it sounds like
bells,
tinkling bells. They're tinkling bells and, you know, fairy sounds. That's what I think it sounds like.
Okay.
It sounds very ethereal to me.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go along with that. That's a tough one.
It is, because you're in the music industry, and if you prefer one genre over another, then you're not really doing your job, are you?
I mean, there's particular genres that I prefer more than others, but I like to think that I can recognise if something's been done well, then it doesn't matter what genre it is. I think as long as it works out, it'll work on the radio. Then that's the main thing, and there'll be people that with different tastes that are certainly going to like it.
Just before we go, I'm going to ask this question, and it's probably a bit unfair, but do you have any band that you have promoted that really sticks out in your memory through the whole time that you've been doing this, that you've really thought, yeah, I really hope they make it because they are really, really good?
That was probably the first band that got me into the whole business. They were a band called Sungover, and as I say, we're all friends, and I just got involved managing them. But they're still probably to this day the band that I got the most radio play with. As I mentioned before, it was the beginning of the internet era, and you had you could get your hands on lots of contacts, and even local BBC radio stations that had nothing to do with the area where they're from were jumping onto it and playing their music. So I've not matched it to this day because, and I think at the time I was sending out CDs literally to anyone. But the fact that all of a sudden we had a directory on the internet where you could just contact radio presenters so easily, I think I got on that just before a lot of other bands did. And as soon as a lot of other bands realised that there was access to these people, the radio presenters soon got inundated. So yeah, definitely Sungover, the first band that I got involved with.
Oh.
So exposure-wise, they did get a fair bit over the years.
Brilliant.
It's been wonderful talking to you, Rob. Thank you so much. This is an industry I don't know much about, so it's been very interesting.
Thank you. Well, I'm also I'm in the process of just branching out, just doing non-music projects as well for as a sister company. I'm going to be calling it DEUCE PR. So that's the next project as well. Still continuing with music, but I want to be able to offer my services to other projects as well that are non-music based.
Oh, fantastic! We could be talking to you down the line then if you're going to promote some, film or something like that. That would be.
You never know. Well, what started it? I got involved with with a rowing team that they were doing an expedition from Brooklyn Bridge to Tower Bridge in a small rowing boat. And I didn't know anything about rowing at all, but I just said I'll give them a hand with the PR because I got to know them a little bit through my brother. And then next thing, we got ITV, Channel 5, all wanting to interview them, and the local London paper got them, did an article on them. And then it got postponed because of COVID, but then further down the line, we when they did it, they completed it, got under Tower Bridge, and managed to get this Sky News helicopter out, and they filmed it live as they went under the Tower Bridge. So I just thought to myself, you know what, I didn't know anything about rowing when I started this all off, but if you can create a good story around something, then it attracts these people's attentions, and people want to know more about it. So that's the plan. So hopefully that's going to be going live within the next month or two.
Oh,
good. Well, we'll get you back on the couch then when you launch that and you're ready for business.
Love to.
Absolutely. So watch this space. DEUCE PR is coming. So
Right.
Thank you so much, Rob, for your time chatting to us today. It's been absolutely so interesting and delightful to have you on the show. And thank you to our lovely audience, as always, for tuning in and watching us. But until next time, we'll see you.